the attitude that atheists take, that if you do not see the world the way they see it, and if you don't live according to reason, you must be an idiot, you must be unintelligent, you must be stupid.
No.
I think that is a bit that...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, let's not go there. I don't want to say that.
Yeah.
What I do want to say is this: faith offers you something. Obviously, that's very, very, very clear. But it doesn't make it true. It doesn't make the existence claims of Christianity true. There is a difference from saying that being in a certain psychological place is consoling and comforting and offers you a meaning of life and gives you a purpose in life. All those things which are wonderful, and I have them too. They're a bit different, but I too have a purpose in life. I have a meaning in life. But just simply because something gives you a meaning and a purpose in life, it doesn't make the existential claims true. And Christianity, like any other religion, makes claims about the world, about the universe, which are either true or not true. And I may be wrong and you may be right. They may be true, but the mere fact that they're comforting doesn't make them true. And that's an important point.
But I agree with you on that point. The mere fact that they are comforting doesn't make them true. But the hypothesis that there is something rather than nothing is something you can't disprove as much as I can't prove materially that
yes.
Jesus was born out of a virgin. So
yes.
I think it's some of these areas where I think it's a very, very important debate that occurred about 200 years ago.
We can have that debate, and that's an important debate, and that's the one I would like to have, rather than the one that's comforting. I mean, for example, I would like to know whether you think that we survive our bodily death when our brain dies. When I asked you that when we had dinner together, and you said no, have you changed your mind about that?
I'm sorry, please repeat. What have I changed my mind about?
About life after death, about surviving.
Do we survive our bodily existence?
I said, do you think we survive our own death? And you said no.
I said yes. Bodily, no. I do not. I don't survive death. I don't think you will survive death. I said that when Bertrand Russell said, "When we die, we shall rot," that that is true. But then, what happens to the soul, consciousness, etc.? That again, I don't know.
So you think there is a soul that survives death?
Well, there is something that, again, like I said, I did feel a connection, and that wasn't a bodily connection. It was a connection through consciousness and mind. And if that's going to outlast me or not, I don't know. I don't know about that. But Richard, I do know where you stand on this debate, and that is.
we could spend the next half hour going through different theological points and seeing whether Ayaan agrees with them or not. But there is this bigger cultural, societal impact point that you've really been in the middle of, Richard. You came out as a cultural Christian, or at least
I didn't. I mean, I've been a cultural Christian all along, and I've never said anything else.
There was a lot of social media excitement recently that you had decided, or you had confirmed that you were a cultural Christian. This is, I suppose, the political Christianity point that Ayaan has also been making. If you accept that there is utility to faith at an individual level and at a societal level, how do you feel about what you have done and your fellow new atheists for the past few decades in so enthusiastically dismantling it?
I am so much more wedded to the importance of truth that I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
I do think that if, for example, in Africa there are missionaries, Christian missionaries and Muslim missionaries fighting for people's loyalty, and I'm on Team Christianity where that's concerned. And so politically, if you have to have a religion,
Will you explain that to us a little bit more?
If you have to, I don't believe you have to have a religion. I think it's patronizing to suggest that people do need a religion. But if they do need a religion, then I'd rather it was Christianity than anything else.
So the dream world, according to Dawkins, would be nobody having a religion, and
Yes.
then in second place Christianity, and then
Yes.
Islam comes last.
Yes.
Okay.
You said...
I think that's fantastic. And I also want to say, you don't have to go as far as Africa to see this confrontation between Team Christianity and Team Islam, and Team Christianity versus Team Wokeism. It's right here. There is a great deal of Islamic missionary work that has been very successful in Britain and in the US and in other parts of Europe. And I think Team Christianity or Team Christian is less confident here in the world of Christian civilization than, say, in Africa. And I want to go one step further and call upon Team Christianity to counter this message, because it's a very powerful message. And even if you and I disagree on whether, there is God and whether there is creation, I respect your view, I know you respect mine. But
Are you inviting Richard Dawkins to join Team Christianity?
Richard Dawkins is on Team Christianity.
Do you accept that, Richard Dawkins? Are you on Team Christianity?
But
If it's a choice.
Richard Dawkins just said that, but I think, and I really mean this in a serious way, I look at those young people in their 20s, in their teens, in their 30s, and right now they're being offered these messages of moral frameworks that they're embracing, that are cultish, that are based on fear, that are nihilistic, and that are dead end. And so if you say you're on Team Christianity, then I would encourage those who are so inclined as to advance Christianity not to worry about Africa, but to start it here. Stand up to those people in Columbia and Harvard and Penn.
What's the problem? What are you against here?
The young people have been susceptible to other ideologies that are
but what
far
other
inferior.
ideologies what are we speaking of there?
Well, there are mosques and Islamic centers that have convinced young people here in America and in Britain and elsewhere that Christianity is dead, has nothing to offer, that Western civilization is a moral vacuum, and that they're here to fill it. And to my astonishment, it seems as if they're making an impact. Look at all these so-called pro-Palestine protests, which are not really pro-Palestine. These are, in my view, clearly, in many ways, they're adopting the religious frameworks offered by Islamists, and what I see is not what you saw in the 1960s. That's a different story. What you're seeing now is a moral vacuum that is being filled, a moral vacuum left behind, untended by
And what is your
Christians.
answer to that? Are you hoping for some kind of Christian revival then? Are you now, having been a famous new atheist, will you now be a Christian evangelist?
I don't know if you should put it that way. The way I would like to put it is, you have this amazing civilization, you have these amazing societies, and it is pretty frightening to see that the best and the brightest are converting to the mind virus of wokeism and the mind virus of Islamism, and that as atheists, no one even seems to have woken up to the idea. There is a condemnation of wokeism, which you do, which you condemn the woke and the mind virus of the woke, you condemn radical Islam. But I think, what do we then have to offer to these young people who are seeking something?
Rational secular humanism. Enlightenment values.
So do you share Ayaan's diagnosis, the mind virus of wokeism, as she puts it, of
yes.
Islamism's return to
Yes.
parts of the West? And Enlightenment humanism doesn't seem to have resisted that advance very successfully.
Well, let's press it harder then.
Rational secular humanism is itself an outcome of Christianity. And
Well,
I think
I don't buy that.
it starts with the admission that rational secular humanism, the Enlightenment was able to take place within that Christian context, and it is a product of Christian civilization. It didn't happen in China, it didn't happen in the Middle East, it didn't happen anywhere else. It happened in these disputes between Christians. And I think part of that story and that whole history is one that needs to be celebrated and told and given to these young minds. And I think where you have a vacuum, something is going to fill it. And aside from the personal rewards that I reap from Christianity, and that you reap from Christianity, I think there is the societal and the civilizational context where this thing is going through the cracks, and without a counter message, a spiritual counter message, I think we're in very, very bad and very, very serious trouble.
It may be true historically that rational secular humanism grew out of Christianity, in the sense that historically that's where it came from. But you could say it's a reaction against Christianity rather than having being in concert with Christianity.
But even as a reaction against Christianity, the advances that we have made are rooted in that story. And my objection to throwing the baby out with the bathwater is that if you create this disconnect so that young people they haven't been told of those debates, they're reading works that tell them that everything that the white male Christian left behind is exploitative, it's destructive, it has to be replaced with something else, it's settler, colonial, whatever. It's being cut off from the roots of that civilization. And I think part of the reason why that vacuum came about and it was possible was because of this casting aside of Christianity and this attitude within atheism that if you say reason, everybody will suddenly start becoming reasonable and think reasonably. And in that sense, that's been a mistake. G.K. Chesterton was right.
Do you regret having been part of the new atheism movement, having preached atheism from that pulpit?
I do regret doing that, and I want to say that when I realized the damage that I was doing, and I was doing a great deal of damage by equating Islam with Christianity. First of all, it is false. We were talking about truth and falsehood, and not all religions are the same. Religions are different because they come out of different cultures and grow out of different contexts. So Christianity is not the same as Islam, and I'm guilty of having said, well, all faiths, all perceptions of God are the same and they're equally damaging. So I come back from that, and I also have come to regret the damage that I've done, and I want to make my friends like Richard and Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett and all the others, I want you to see what I see. And what I see is where you have a moral vacuum, something is going to fill it. I want you to see that the teachings of Christianity, just like you said, if there is a competition between Team Christian and Team Islam, you would be on Team Christian. That what you value in Christianity is something that really is absolutely necessary to pass on to the next generation. And we have failed the next generation by taking away from them that moral framework and telling them it's nonsense and false, but also not protecting them then from the external forces that come in for their hearts, their minds, and their souls.
I think you're wrong to say. I think that you're wrong to differentiate Christianity from Islam in that sense. I mean, these Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they have the same holy book. They believe in hell. They believe in a dictatorial God. They believe in so much that's similar. The problem with Islam is that it's 700 years out of date, and Christianity has moved on. Thank goodness, and mainly because most Christians don't actually believe it anymore. I mean, they don't take it seriously. The problem with Islam is that they take it seriously. They believe in their religion. They actually will fight to the death for their religion in the way that crusaders used to, and thank goodness they no longer do. Christianity has grown up, has grown out of that.
But how do you respond to Ayaan's charge there? It feels like quite a grave charge that atheism movement, that dismantling, has left a whole generation inadequately equipped to deal with the forces that are coming at them, and that's what she's saying.
We have secular humanism, we have rationality, we have moral philosophy. Moral philosophy is how we decide which bits of Christianity we like and which bits we don't, which bits of the Bible we take as being moral and which ones we don't. We cherry pick. And the basis for our cherry picking is modern, secular, moral philosophy, which is a well-established philosophical discipline, and it's on that basis that we decide what is moral and what is not. We decide in favor of feminism, of all the things that we value today, which do not come from Christianity. They come in spite of Christianity, in spite of all religions.
So what is your diagnosis for why that has come about? Why so many people do seem to be so lost during this secular age? If it's not the fault of receding religion, why has it
Well,
happened?
I'm not quite sure what we're talking about when we say this moral vacuum. I mean, we're talking about wokeism, are we?
But first, I really do want to object, Freddie, to Richard, the statement you made about the holy books of Christianity and Islam being the same is absolutely untrue. And in fact, maybe a follow-up to this discussion would be to actually read these books to see what's in them and how different they are. And another mega difference is the characters of Jesus and the characters of Muhammad are absolutely radically different.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, but that is why the holy books are not the same. The story is absolutely not the same. They are different. And yes, each one of them makes a claim to being an Abrahamic religion. And there I do have to do a little bit of reading up on Abraham. I have to do a little bit of reading on the Old Testament. But as far as I can tell now, from where I am in the New Testament, it couldn't be more different from the Quran.
Well, okay. I've done a lot of reading up of it. The Old Testament is a very, very nasty book indeed. And the New Testament, on the face of it, is better. But the aspect of it which I mentioned before, the idea of God couldn't think of a better way to forgive the sins of humanity than to have his son crucified. That is a disgusting idea.
God gave us free will. God gave us free will. But again, I don't want us to go back to where we have agreed, to disagree. But in terms of, you asked, what do you mean by a moral vacuum? And what can we fill that moral vacuum with? the conception or the perception of the difference between right and wrong is, I think, something human beings have been trying to answer for millennia. And we have different human beings and different categories of human beings have reached different answers. And I think that if you take the history and the story of the moral story of this civilization, if you say, well, it's useless, let's mock it, let's cast it aside, what emerges is a generation of young people growing up who haven't been provided with their Christian or their Judeo-Christian moral framework, and they also, for some reason, haven't been given what you are saying you're offering now, which is a moral humanism, or I haven't seen any kind of organized, in the way religions are organized, temples of reason and people dedicated to delivering a message of morality to young people. What you
Do you
have
accept that, Richard? Just to...
Well, in that case, if that were true, then we need to work harder. But we don't. What we don't need is to saddle our morality with a lot of supernatural nonsense.
Well, what I think the assumption was that universities and schools would provide that, and that universities and schools, again, separated from their Christian underpinnings, started to say, we are neutral grounds, and we are going to adopt a moral neutrality towards religion and faith. And there, exactly, that's where the vacuum emerged. Young people looking for moral direction, not getting it from their own civilization, and other forces coming in and filling that out. And that is the crisis that you are witnessing now. And I think it is I'm not evangelizing, I'm not imposing a new or an old form of morality, but I'm saying that we are having a very, very serious moral crisis. And I hope that this is just the first conversation, but for those of us, I am coming out and saying, when I was advancing atheism and saying that Christianity is nonsense and it is just as nonsensical and as dangerous as Islam, I was absolutely wrong, and I contributed to this moral vacuum. And I stepped back.
Christianity, I mean, the largest Christian church at the moment is the Roman Catholic Church. And they are the people who've got the organization going. They've got the whole of South America. They've got an enormous number of people. And they stand for total opposition to abortion, contraception. This is not a good organization for morality.
I think the challenge to you is, if you say the Catholic Church or the Anglican Church or any of the other Christian churches are either, in terms of your words, either nonsensical or immoral or useless, or regardless of however you characterize them, if you don't have an alternative, and I think from at least the last 5 or so decades, we see that no alternative has been established. Again, the assumption was reason and enlightenment and humanism is simply going to emerge from education. The higher your level of education, the more reasonable you are. Now, what we see on display in our universities is the very opposite. That is a moral crisis.
Do you accept that?
Well, you seem to be saying that the organization isn't there. I mean, we need a church of humanism or something like that. I've never been in favor of that kind of thing, but
do you accept the observation that Ayaan is making? Do you think that's true, that having expected enlightened humanism to take the space if religion receded, that didn't happen? I
was never that optimistic. I mean, I never thought we were going to have a sort of brave new world of enlightened humanism. I was just interested in the truth, and the idea that somehow we were on a mission to found a new church or something like that. We just never were.
So you didn't think about what would happen afterwards?
No, I mean, I can't speak for my colleagues, but for as far as I was concerned, what I was interested in is what is true. And I believe that all religions are false, and I'm interested in what is scientifically true.